Smoke still clung to her skin. Even as the barn disappeared behind the rise, even as the flames dimmed in the morning haze, it lingered, sharp, bitter, woven into her like sin. Her name was Eliza Crane. The townsfolk didn't say it anymore. If they spoke of her at all, it was in hushed tones and sideways glances. The widow, the cursed one, the one who didn't scream when they buried him. Eliza gripped the reins of the stolen horse, riding bareback across the soaked field. Rain had passed, but the ground was soft and slick with mud. Her boots were ruined. She didn't care. Not after last night. Dust Hollow sat in the valley like a bad secret. Gray wood, gray skies, church bell that hadn't rung in months. It used to be a place of hymn and honey. But that was before her husband died. Before the whispers. Before the bruises she covered with rouge. Before the night she stopped covering them. She rode past the broken fence line where the Miller boy disappeared. Past the chapel steps where the Reverend dropped dead mid-sermon. Past the general store boarded shut since the fever took Old Maeve. All of it, silent. Watching. She pulled up near the dry creek. There, nestled between thorn brush and pine, was the one place no one dared go anymore. The old Kavanaugh house. They said it was cursed. Said the family line ended in screams. But Eliza knew better. She'd found the locket in its fireplace. She'd seen the initials carved into the back. Same as the mark her husband bore. She dismounted, hiding the horse behind a thicket, and ducked through the warped door. Inside, time had collapsed. Dust hung in the air like ghosts. Rot bloomed from the floorboards. And at the heart of it all, a stone well, built into the center of the living room. She stepped to its edge, the echo of her boots swallowed by the void below. Eliza knelt, pulling the locket from her blouse. It was warm, always warm. She pressed it to the rim of the well. Whispers rose. She listened. Soon, they said. He's not the last. Her hand trembled, but she didn't let go. They'll come, the voices whispered, with fire and fury. But they'll learn what you are. Eliza stood, straightened her shoulders, wiped the soot from her brow. She wasn't running anymore. Let them come. Let the world remember her name. Before we jump back in, tell me where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Smoke still clung to her skin. Even as the barn disappeared behind the rise, even as the flames dimmed in the morning haze, it lingered, sharp, bitter, woven into her like sin. Her name was Eliza Crane. The townsfolk didn't say it anymore. If they spoke of her at all, it was in hushed tones and sideways glances. The widow, the cursed one, the one who didn't scream when they buried him. Eliza gripped the reins of the stolen horse, riding bareback across the soaked field. Rain had passed, but the ground was soft and slick with mud. Her boots were ruined. She didn't care. Not after last night. Dust Hollow sat in the valley like a bad secret. Gray wood, gray skies, church bell that hadn't rung in months. It used to be a place of hymn and honey. But that was before her husband died. Before the whispers. Before the bruises she covered with rouge. Before the night she stopped covering them. She rode past the broken fence line where the Miller boy disappeared. Past the chapel steps where the Reverend dropped dead mid-sermon. Past the general store boarded shut since the fever took Old Maeve. All of it, silent. Watching. She pulled up near the dry creek. There, nestled between thorn brush and pine, was the one place no one dared go anymore. The old Kavanaugh house. They said it was cursed. Said the family line ended in screams. But Eliza knew better. She'd found the locket in its fireplace. She'd seen the initials carved into the back. Same as the mark her husband bore. She dismounted, hiding the horse behind a thicket, and ducked through the warped door. Inside, time had collapsed. Dust hung in the air like ghosts. Rot bloomed from the floorboards. And at the heart of it all, a stone well, built into the center of the living room. She stepped to its edge, the echo of her boots swallowed by the void below. Eliza knelt, pulling the locket from her blouse. It was warm, always warm. She pressed it to the rim of the well. Whispers rose. She listened. Soon, they said. He's not the last. Her hand trembled, but she didn't let go. They'll come, the voices whispered, with fire and fury. but they'll learn what you are. Eliza stood, straightened her shoulders, wiped the soot from her brow. She wasn't running anymore. Let them come. Let the world remember her name. A knock came at dusk. Not a pound. A knock. Measured, deliberate. Eliza froze mid-step. The kettle in her hand hissed as water boiled over. No one ever came this deep into the woods. Not to the Kavanaugh house. Not to her. She reached for the pistol on the mantel, eyes never leaving the door. Another knock. Then a voice. I don't mean harm, Widow Crane. I've come for the locket. Her blood turned cold. Only 2 men had ever known about the locket. One she'd buried beneath fire. The other. She unlatched the door and opened it a crack. A man stood under the porch overhang, tall and wrapped in a duster slick with rain. His face was half-shadowed beneath a wide-brimmed hat, but his voice was younger than she expected, steady, worn, but young. You're not from Dust Hollow. He smiled faintly. No, ma'am, but I know what's sleeping under it. He reached into his coat slowly. No weapon, just a badge. Silver, weathered, and old. Too old. Marshall, she asked. Was. A long time ago. What do you want? He looked past her, into the ruined house. Same thing they all want. Only I'm here to warn you first. Eliza gripped the pistol tighter. They're coming, Eliza, he said. Not for justice. Not for vengeance. For the well. A gust of wind kicked ash from the cold fireplace. The shadows seemed to stretch along the walls. Why now, she asked. Because you opened it, he replied, voice low. You listened to it. Fed it. I didn't. You used it. Whether you meant to or not. Eliza stepped out, jaw tight. So what happens now? He glanced back toward the trees. Now, you've got 2 nights before they ride in. Maybe 20 men. Maybe 30. Maybe something worse. She raised her chin. Let them come. He looked at her then. Not with pity, not with fear, but something bordering on awe. I think you want them to, he muttered. Maybe that's what it's been waiting for. He turned to leave. Wait, what is the well? The former marshal paused at the steps, rain dripping from his hat brim. Something older than you. Older than Dust Hollow. It doesn't grant wishes, widow. It collects debts. He walked into the trees and vanished. Eliza stood alone under the porch as night closed in, the locket burning against her skin. The general store had been closed for months, but inside, by candlelight, a quiet meeting stirred beneath the dust. Silas Brigg, once the town's blacksmith, now hunched and bitter, slammed a coin down on the counter. She's back, he muttered. Or what's left of her. Across from him, Lenora Maeve, daughter of the fever-dead matron, folded her arms. Eliza ain't the problem, Silas. It's the well. Silas spat. Same thing. Behind them, someone shifted. Ezra Holling, the undertaker's son, leaned forward, eyes dark. I've seen the light. In the woods. Blue, like cold fire. Same as the day the preacher dropped dead, Lenora said softly. Ezra nodded. They say she lives in the Kavanaugh house, Silas sneered. Same place where that boy vanished. Same place her husband went missing weeks before they found him burned. She didn't kill him, Lenora shot back. You just needed someone to blame. Silas rose. She's a conduit. The well's calling through her. A pause. Then a voice from the dark. She's not the only one it's calling. Heads turned as Clara Holling stepped into the candlelight. Ezra's younger sister. Skin pale, eyes unfocused, voice distant. She looked hollow. I dreamed of her, Clara whispered. But her eyes were wrong. They were black. And she wasn't alone. Silas backed away. She's been touched, he muttered. Just like the locket. Lenora put an arm around Clara, steadying her. We need answers. Not more fear. No, Silas said. What we need is to end this before it spreads. Ezra frowned. And what? The well? Or her? Silas didn't answer. Outside, the wind picked up. A flock of crows shrieked as they scattered from the chapel steeple. Meanwhile, across town, a boy named Thomas, barely 12, scraped through the cellar of the burned-out barn. He'd heard the gunshot. He'd seen the flames. Now, he was digging in the ash, searching for what the fire hadn't taken. He found it. A scorched ring. Too large for Eliza. Still warm. He slipped it into his coat and ran, not noticing the flicker of pale light that followed him from the barn. Back in the woods, Lenora stepped outside, lantern in hand. She looked toward the hills, toward where the Kavanaugh house sat like a wound in the earth. "She's not what they think," she whispered. Behind her, Clara's voice drifted from the store. "She's becoming." Eliza had planned to leave by nightfall. Saddle the horse. Take the North Ridge Trail. Disappear before the riders arrived. But the moment she stepped outside the Kavanaugh house, she knew she was too late. A figure stood on the trail, just beyond the tree-line. Then another, and another. Silent. Motionless. No horses. No torches. Just shadows in the dusk, lining the woods like teeth around prey. She stepped back, hand brushing the locket through her blouse. It pulsed once, then went cold. From the darkness came a sound. Not a voice. A hum. Low, ancient, rising like wind through bones. And then, he stepped forward. The man from the barn. He should have been dead. She saw him die. Shot through the chest, burned in the fire. But here he was, lantern in hand, eyes black as coal. "Eliza," he said, voice too calm. Too wrong. She raised the pistol. "You're not him." He smiled, lantern flickering. "Not anymore." She fired. The bullet struck his chest, and he staggered, but didn't fall. The flesh there was charred, twisted, and something beneath it shimmered. Not blood, not bone, something older. He straightened. "You thought the well would only feed you," he said. "But it remembers all its debts." Eliza backed toward the house. The door slammed shut behind her before she could reach it. Windows darkened. The well inside groaned. From beneath the floorboards, a voice rose. Not the whispers she knew. This one spoke. "Bring him in." She turned. The door creaked open slowly, not by her hand. The shadowed man stepped inside, and the others followed. Panic rose, but the locket flared hot against her chest. Eliza grabbed it, held it high. "You want him? Take him back." The fire from the pendant erupted, lashing the air like a whip. The man staggered again, the others recoiling. But then, the flames died. Snuffed. The locket fell cold once more. The whispering returned. Mocking. "You open the door. It does not close." The shadowed figures surged forward, but not to kill. To kneel. The former marshal's voice echoed in her memory. "It doesn't grant wishes, widow. It collects debts." They weren't here to destroy her. They were here to serve her. The locket had chosen. The well had spoken. And Eliza's plan to flee? It was no longer hers to make. She stood in the center of the room, the shadows bowing, the burned man smirking at her feet. Tears welled in her eyes, not from fear. From the terrible, hollow understanding that the thing beneath Dust Hollow wasn't done with her. Not by half. Eliza stood at the edge of the well, breath shallow, the locket dangling in her hand like an anchor to a world she no longer recognized. The kneeling figures had vanished with the night. The burned man, her husband in flesh, but not in soul, had left with them, lantern swinging, whispering something she couldn't hear. Something not meant for her ears anymore. She hadn't slept since. Not truly. Visions came when her eyes closed. Visions of the well swallowing stars, of Dust Hollow cracking open like bone. And always, always the voice. Debt must be paid. Balance must be held. She looked down at her hands. They were steady now. No tremble. No fear. But inside her chest, guilt clawed like rats in the walls. She hadn't meant to open anything. She just wanted to survive. And now, the cost was growing. Lenora, Maeve found her in the ruins of the Kavanaugh orchard. "You look like hell," Lenora muttered, holding out a tin cup. Eliza took it. "Tea. Cold, but grounding." "They're afraid of you," Lenora said. "I know. You afraid of yourself?" Eliza stared into the trees. "I think the old me died with him." Lenora crouched by the overgrown roots. "Clara's been drawing pictures. Of you. But not you. Something with your eyes. Standing over fire." Eliza's breath hitched. "The well's changing things. Me. Them. The town. Can you stop it?" Eliza shook her head. "I'm not sure I want to." Silence. Lenora stood slowly. "Then we'll be ready. If it comes to that." That tiny word, "we," stung more than it should have. No one had stood with her in months. Now this stranger, this shopkeeper's daughter, was offering trust where even family had turned away. Eliza nodded once. Quiet. Thankful. Elsewhere, Ezra Holling pulled Clara's latest sketch from beneath her pillow. It was the well. Always the well. But now, it bled black across the page. Shadowy tendrils reached up from its depths, stretching toward a single figure. Eliza, standing in a red dress, arms raised, face blank. He turned the page over. Scribbled words scrawled in Clara's cramped hand. She is the gate. And the lock. By dusk, strange things moved in Dust Hollow. Crows perched on the chapel spire, unmoving for hours. Wells across town dried to dust. Livestock refused to graze near the river. And someone, or something, had carved circles into the town square overnight. People whispered. Doors stayed shut. And still, no one left. It was as if the town itself was holding its breath. Eliza wandered into the church. The air inside was thick with mildew and rot, but the light through the stained glass painted the pews in crimson and gold. She sat and waited. Eventually, the former marshal appeared in the aisle. "Still think you can run from it?" he asked. She didn't answer. He walked forward, boots echoing on the warped floor. "You were chosen, not cursed. That's what they all get wrong." "I never asked for any of this," she muttered. "No one does. But once you hear the well speak, it doesn't forget you." He paused beside her. "You still have a choice. To lead it, or to seal it." She looked up. "Can it be sealed?" He hesitated. "It's been done before. Long ago. But it takes more than will. It takes blood. And it takes loss." Her fingers gripped the locket. "I've already lost everything." "No," he said softly. "You've only just begun." He turned and walked out, lantern fading into the coming night. Eliza sat alone, the locket burning once more against her heart. Not hot, not cold, just alive. And somehow, she didn't feel alone anymore. Thunder cracked over Dust Hollow. The rain didn't fall normal. It spiraled, wind churning in slow, unnatural circles above the hills. Animals had gone silent. Not even the crickets dared whisper. Eliza was drawn to the barn again. The same one where she had once hid. The same one where she thought she'd seen him die. But now, it felt different. The wood groaned under her weight as she stepped inside, torchlight throwing long shadows across the charred beams. Something beneath the ash glittered. She crouched. A ring. Her husband's ring. But as she reached for it, the ash moved. It curled back like breath being drawn, revealing a hidden hatch, sealed in iron, etched with a symbol that matched the locket. Her heart stuttered. She should have left. But she didn't. Eliza pulled the hatch open. Inside was a stairwell, and at the bottom, a room of stone. She stepped into the dark. The walls were covered in handprints. Small ones. Dozens. Burned into the rock like shadows at noon. In the center stood a pedestal. Upon it, a book, bound in skin. She didn't want to touch it, but her hand moved anyway. As her fingers brushed the cover, the locket pulsed, and the room woke. A voice, not the whispering, but something clearer, spoke from the shadows. He never left. Eliza's breath caught. "I saw him burn," she said. "You saw a vessel." The shadows rippled. From the far side of the room, a figure emerged. Charred, hollow-eyed, familiar. Not her husband, but her brother, Thomas, the boy she buried during the sickness, the one she blamed herself for losing. He stepped forward, barefoot across stone, voice sharp. "You opened it, Eliza. You called us back." "No," she whispered. You were gone." "I never was," he said. "The well took me. You just didn't hear it back then." The truth landed like a blow. The well hadn't awakened because of her. It had always been awake. It had always been hers. Inherited. A bloodline curse disguised as choice. The locket hadn't chosen her. It had been waiting for her. The burnt man wasn't her husband at all. He was a guardian. A warning. And she had killed him. Eliza staggered back. "I didn't know." Thomas raised a hand. "You still don't." The stone around them pulsed. The handprints glowed. Each one a life the well had taken. Children. Men. Women. She saw their faces in flashes. Mothers clutching babes. Men screaming into fire. Townsfolk lost in the woods. And one face at the center of it all. Her own. Not now, but years ago. Younger. Crying. Holding the locket. Lenora had said Eliza was found wandering after the sickness. She didn't remember. But the well did. It never forgot. Eliza didn't remember walking back from the barn. Her hands were streaked in soot. Her dress was wet from the storm. But her mind was locked somewhere beneath the earth, where her brother's voice still echoed through her bones. You opened it. You called us back. She collapsed onto the steps of the church. The locket burned against her chest, no longer hot or cold, but heavy. It didn't feel like a key anymore. It felt like a chain. Inside, the chapel bells rang once. No wind. No hand. Just a warning. Lenora slammed the tavern door shut, pacing. You saw her eyes? She hissed at Ezra. He nodded, pale and shaking. They weren't hers. Not anymore. Clara sat on the floor, quietly sketching something on the back of a torn menu. Lenora knelt beside her. Sweetheart, what's that? Clara held up the picture. It was the town, cracked open like an egg, and something crawling out. Lenora turned to Ezra, voice low. We need to leave. Ezra shook his head. No one's getting out. Roads are gone. The river reversed. I sent 2 riders west this morning. They came back, different. Different how? They had no eyes. Back at the Kavanaugh house, Eliza tried to sleep. She couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she remembered, not just Thomas, but the day she first found the locket in her mother's sewing drawer. The way it hummed, the way the air had stilled, the way the world noticed her for the first time. She thought it was protection. It was possession. Tears welled up, but she didn't cry. She was past that now. Grief was a river she had long since drowned in. This was deeper. A hollowing. A silence between the ribs. The townspeople gathered at dawn. Whispers filled the square. Eyes watched her as she walked past, some filled with pity, others with suspicion. A child clung to her mother's skirts and whispered, Is she the witch? Eliza didn't answer. She wasn't sure what she was anymore. In the woods beyond Dust Hollow, the burned man knelt beside a pool of black water. He touched the surface. Ripples spread. Thomas's voice spoke from the trees. She remembers. The man's mouth curled. Good. Then the well is ready. Behind him, the shadows stirred. The second morning came without birdsong. Dust Hollow was too quiet now. The mist lingered, heavier than before. It moved like it was watching. Eliza walked barefoot through it, the locket tucked beneath her shirt, glowing faintly with every heartbeat. The church stood crooked ahead, windows cracked, roof sagging. But it was hers now. Not as a sanctuary, but a base. A place to begin again. Inside, she found the marshal's old journal hidden beneath the altar boards. Leather-bound, stitched by hand. It reeked of oil and smoke. She flipped it open. Dozens of names. Symbols. Rituals. Notes on the well going back centuries. In the margins, a single phrase was circled again and again. Not a curse. A door. She read deeper. A pattern began to form. Every few decades, a woman. Always marked. Always drawn to the well. Some fought it. Some embraced it. All of them lost, unless someone helped them close it. There was a way. She wasn't the first. And maybe, she didn't have to be the last. Ezra found her sitting in the back pew. The journal spread across her lap. You planning to burn it all down? He asked. No, she said calmly. I'm going to seal it. He laughed bitterly. You make that sound easy. It won't be. I'll need blood, intention, and help. From who? She looked at him, steady. You. Ezra blinked. You want me. I want the man who still guards his daughter's dreams. Who didn't run when he saw the truth. That man. Silence. He sat beside her. I thought you were the end of this town. She nodded. So did I? But I think I might be the only way it survives. At the edge of the orchard, Lenora gathered salt and iron shavings. Clara stood beside her, barefoot in the dirt. You sure this is what you want, honey? Lenora asked. Clara's voice was distant. The well dreams of fire. But she can stop it. Who? Eliza? Clara nodded. She remembers now. And remembering means she can choose. Lenora swallowed hard, then began drawing a protective circle around them. That night, Eliza returned to the barn. She traced her mother's sigil into the ground with ash and whispered the names of the women who came before. The locket grew hot. She didn't flinch. When the shadows came, they did not attack. They listened. I am not your vessel, she said aloud. I am your warden. The barn groaned. The trees bent inward. The well pulsed in the distance, as if it had heard her. The night air hung thick as smoke. Eliza stood beneath the gallows tree, lantern in hand, waiting. Ezra was late. He was supposed to bring the final piece, her mother's silver comb, used in the sealing ritual. Without it, the circle would break. The well would stay open. Footsteps crunched behind her. She turned, hope rising. Ezra emerged from the dark, but not alone. Beside him stood Thomas, his charred skin now healed, eyes gleaming like obsidian. Eliza's lantern dimmed. "You said you'd help me," she whispered to Ezra. His face twisted. "I was helping, until I realized this town's already dead." "You don't believe that." "I do, Eliza." He took a step closer. "You were right about one thing. The well doesn't curse, it offers. It gave me a chance to start again. With Clara. Without fear. Without sickness. All I had to do was give you up." Eliza's heart didn't break, it burned. "You traded me. I traded a sacrifice. One the town's already blamed for everything. Nothing changes." Thomas stepped forward. "Your blood will close the circle, or open it. The choice is still yours." He offered the comb, not with mercy, but with cruelty. The implication clear. They would use her either way. From the treeline, a small figure watched. Clara. Tears streaked her face as she turned and ran. Eliza saw her, saw the truth. There was still one soul worth saving. She didn't scream, didn't fight. She stepped forward, took the comb, and plunged it into her own palm. Blood spilled across the soil, soaking into the sigil. She raised her voice. "By the blood of the first, I bind the well." The earth shook. Thomas roared, lunging, but Eliza was faster. With her free hand, she tore the locket from her neck and hurled it into the burning soil. A flash of light tore through the night. When the smoke cleared, Ezra was gone. Thomas, nothing but ash. The well silent, but Eliza had fallen to her knees. Breath shallow, hand trembling. She had not died, but she had given something greater. Her trust, her innocence, and whatever love she had left. The wind had shifted. Eliza stood at the edge of the town, her feet sinking into the wet earth. The locket still burned against her chest, its presence now a constant reminder of the price she had paid. The well was calling. She could feel it in her bones. Only one more step, and it will all end. Behind her, the town was in chaos. People were gathering, those still alive, still human. They had heard the rumblings in the ground, felt the air growing thick with dread. Lenora's voice cut through the rising panic. "Eliza, don't do this. There's still time." But Eliza didn't turn. She had already made her choice. "You saw what happened when I tried to escape it. This isn't just a fight for me anymore. It's for everyone who stayed, everyone who's been left." Lenora's face twisted with confusion and anger. "You can't save them by killing yourself." "I'm not saving anyone." Eliza's voice was colder now. "I'm ending it." Clara stood in the doorway of the church, eyes wide, tears streaking down her face. "Mom, don't leave me." Lenora's gaze softened. She opened her arms, and Clara rushed into them. "I have to," Lenora whispered, her voice breaking. "This is bigger than us." The ground shook again. The tremors were growing. Like the very earth itself was losing its grip on reality. They could hear the wind grow louder. Worse, the storm. It wasn't just the weather anymore. The well had taken the sky, too. The clouds twisted, darkened, and there was something alive in them. Lenora stood up abruptly, grasping Clara's hand. "Stay inside. Don't come out until I say so." The child nodded, biting her lip, but her eyes followed Eliza as she walked toward the mountain, the source of it all. Ezra was there, too. He was by the river, kneeling, eyes closed in silent prayer. His face was ashen, streaked with soot. He was still trying to understand what had happened, why he had betrayed the only person who had ever trusted him. It wasn't just guilt anymore. It was fear. Eliza had done it. She had sealed the well, and in doing so, she had thrown the balance off. He knew the well wasn't finished. It never would be. The ground trembled again, closer this time. Ezra stood, his fists clenched. He didn't want to fight her. He didn't want to fight anyone. But something was coming, and he wasn't sure he could stop it. By the time Eliza reached the barn, the sky had cracked open. The swirling storm above was turning in on itself, like a vortex. A whirlpool in the heavens, dragging everything into it. The town was barely holding its ground. People were running in every direction, not knowing what to do or where to go. Eliza's feet moved without thinking. Her hand still clutched the locket, but now it felt different. The pulse was stronger, more urgent. A shriek of wind, and then a figure stood in the doorway. Thomas, no longer burnt, but whole. Eliza, he rasped, his voice thick with something ancient. It's too late. The storm above them darkened, casting shadows over the land. Eliza could feel the weight of it pressing down, dragging her deeper into its gravity. It was time. The storm raged above, the world suffocating under its weight. Eliza stood alone in the barn, her breath sharp and shallow. Her heart thudded in her chest as she stared across the room at Thomas, who had taken form again, alive, but something was off about him. His skin was unblemished, but his eyes glowed like embers. The well's energy pulsed from him like an open wound. "You're too late, Eliza," Thomas said, his voice like gravel scraping against stone. "The well cannot be undone. It's a part of me now, part of all of us." The air around them hummed, thick with the weight of the world trying to crack open. Eliza's hand trembled against the locket, the blood binding her to the past, to the curse, to the truth she had never asked for. "You think this is a choice?" she asked, stepping forward, her voice cold but steady. "I didn't ask for this. You made me a vessel. You made me believe this was the only way." Thomas smiled, a cruel twist of his lips. "You think the others are innocent? The people who stayed behind? They wanted this. They needed it. The well is not a curse. It's a promise." "No," Eliza's voice cut through the storm. "It's a trap." A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face, but it was gone in an instant. "You can't stop it, Eliza. The well chooses. And you are the one who opened it. You're the one who called me. I didn't call you." Her words were heavy. "But I can send you back." Lenora and Clara stood at the edge of the barn, silent, watching. Lenora held Clara tightly in her arms, her heart hammering in her chest. She had watched Eliza walk away from them, had heard the words she spoke to Thomas, and knew this was the moment. The one where Eliza would either break or become something stronger. Clara's eyes were wide, watching Eliza, but there was no fear in them, only determination. "She'll do it, won't she?" Lenora looked down at her daughter, unsure how to answer. She had seen Eliza fight. She had seen her lose, too. But something was different now. Eliza had chosen this fight. And for the first time, Lenora saw her as more than just a woman fighting for survival. She was fighting for everyone. Thomas took a step forward, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "You're so naive. You'll never defeat me. The well is already here. The storm, the earth, it all belongs to me now." But Eliza didn't flinch. She stepped forward, pushing the locket deeper against her chest, feeling the heat burn through her skin. "No, it belongs to no one." She spoke with finality. "I may have called it, but I can control it. I don't need the well to tell me who I am." The ground trembled again. This time, the earth itself split beneath them, cracking like dry wood. Eliza closed her eyes. In the silence, she could feel it, the power of the well, the pulse, the scream of all the women who had come before her. But now, they weren't just whispers. They were voices. Her voices. And she wasn't alone. The wind howled through the barn as Eliza raised her hand, blood dripping from the cut she'd made earlier. She began to chant, her words ancient, filled with the weight of all the secrets the well had buried. Thomas lunged toward her, but this time, Eliza was ready. She moved faster than he could react, slamming her hand into the ground as the well's energy swirled around her. "No more," she whispered. The air turned black as the storm peaked. Lightning struck the barn, lighting up the night sky, and the ground beneath them cracked wide open. Ezra stood at the edge of town, watching as the earth split. His heart raced as he turned toward the barn, desperate to help, but he knew it was too late. Eliza had already made her choice, and now, she would either be consumed by it, or destroy it for good. Inside the barn, Thomas screamed as the earth swallowed him whole. The darkness pulled him down, his body twisting in the air like a marionette. Eliza stood firm, her arms raised, the power of the well crackling around her. She could feel it. He was gone. The curse was breaking, but there was a price. The well's energy surged toward her, trying to pull her in, trying to make her its final victim. She gasped, feeling her own strength faltering, her body weakening under its weight. But she didn't give in. She fought. She fought until the earth stopped shaking, until the storm began to dissipate. Outside the barn, the wind died. Dust Hollow was still, and Eliza fell to her knees. The sky was clearing. As Eliza knelt on the ground, her hands pressed against the cold earth, she could feel the last traces of the well's power slipping away. The storm had ceased, the air was still, and the wind, once an agonizing howl, had quieted into a whisper. The land had finally calmed. But Eliza could still feel it, the burn of the locket against her chest, the weight of everything she had given up. Her breath came in ragged gasps, the energy of the battle having drained her to the core. She could feel the world around her stabilizing, the earth healing, but inside, she was torn between relief and a strange, gnawing emptiness. Was it worth it? For a moment, everything stood still. There were no sounds, no movement, just the quiet aftermath of destruction, of creation. Behind her, she heard footsteps. Soft, careful. Lenora and Clara emerged from the shadows, eyes wide but wary. They had seen the storm, heard the rumbles, felt the earth tremble. And now they saw the woman who had fought for them all, the woman who had given everything. Eliza, Lenora whispered, voice trembling. Eliza didn't look up. She just nodded. We thought you were gone, Lenora said, kneeling beside her, her hand gently touching Eliza's shoulder. But you did it. You stopped it. I did, Eliza replied, her voice distant, as though the words themselves had no weight. But I'm not the same. Clara, her small hand resting on Eliza's arm, looked at her with a mixture of awe and sadness. You're a hero. No, Eliza's eyes met hers, and for the first time in a long while, there was clarity. I'm just someone who's tired. Tired of running, tired of fighting, tired of surviving. She let the silence stretch between them, feeling the weight of what she had done and the weight of what she still had to face. Ezra appeared at the edge of the barn, his steps hesitant, as though he feared crossing an invisible line. His eyes locked with Eliza's, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, he crossed the threshold. Eliza, he murmured, I'm sorry. For everything. Her gaze softened, but she said nothing. She didn't need to. They had both paid too high a price for words now. The town of Dust Hollow was no longer the same. The earth was quiet, but the air still carried the echoes of what had been done. The curse had been broken, but the scars would remain forever. Eliza stood, the others watching her closely, their faces a mix of relief and sorrow. She had ended the curse, yes, but there were no celebrations. There was no victory to be had. Only a quiet, solemn understanding that this was not an end, but a new beginning. And as the sun began to rise over the town, casting a soft golden light on the ruins of the past, Eliza finally spoke the words she had been holding inside. We rebuild. We start over. And though she did not know what that would look like, she felt the weight of the future pressing down on her, just as heavy as the past. But this time, she was ready to face it, not with the lantern to guide her, but with the quiet strength of knowing she had survived. As the town of Dust Hollow began to rebuild, Eliza's gaze remained fixed on the horizon, her heart steady, but her soul still yearning for something she wasn't sure she could ever find.